Hello, friends, and welcome back to Walk in the Word Devotional. I'm so glad you joined us today as we look in the Word of God again. And today we're going to be talking about worldly wisdom versus spiritual wisdom. And our text is coming from James chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. The text says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but earthly, spiritual, and demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom that comes from above is pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace." Have you ever considered that origin determines outcome? Well, when you apply this principle to wisdom, worldly wisdom will produce worldly results, and spiritual wisdom will produce spiritual results. So in our text, James is contrasting worldly wisdom and spiritual wisdom. He begins with worldly wisdom by first giving us a definition and the source of worldly wisdom. In verse 14 and 15 he says, "But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes from above, but is earthly, spiritual, demonic." So we see that James makes it clear in these verses how we can recognize worldly wisdom and that it's not from God, but from the devil. Then in verse 16, James tells us the result of worldly wisdom. It says, "For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice." So when we consider the results of worldly wisdom that James mentions here in the text, we can understand that one of the reasons the world is in such a mess is that men have refused to accept wisdom from God. So James continues to give us the source and definition of spiritual wisdom from above. In verse 17 he says, "But the wisdom from above is pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere." So first he gives us the source of wisdom from above when he says that it is pure. We read in Proverbs chapter 30, verse 5, that every word of God is pure. So when James says that the wisdom from above is pure, he means it's coming straight from God, and we get that through his word, the Bible. When we listen to the wisdom from God, we receive his peace. When we have God's peace, we become gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. Now, when we apply all these qualities from the wisdom of God in verse 18, it tells us the results we can experience. A harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Friends, when we are contrasting worldly wisdom and spiritual wisdom, consider this. What we are is what we live, and what we live is what we sow. What we sow determines what we reap. If we live in God's wisdom, we sow righteousness and peace, and we reap God's blessing. If we live in man's worldly wisdom, we sow sin and war and reap confusion and every evil work. So I want to encourage you today to seek God's wisdom, and in doing so, you can make a difference in the world. May God bless you.